down a little bit after they threw some officers to the wolves, so some people think. What's going on in Baltimore right now?
Well, this is fascinating to me, and it's something that I'm following pretty closely because as the people like the president and Eric Holder and that group and the mayor of New York seem to be trying to throw police under the bus, blame them for problems. And Baltimore was the same. Their mayor and their public safety commissioner and to some extent their police chief have kind of blamed the police, and then 6 of them were charged with crimes. And I noticed recently, and let me just read this. Antoinette Perrine said, "I'm afraid to go outside. It's so bad people are afraid to let their kids outside. People wake up with shots through their windows. Police used to sit on every corner. These days, they're nowhere." So, what's happened? There have been 36 people killed, murdered in Baltimore just so far in the month following those riots that they had up there. And the homicides are spiking, but the arrests have dropped by 50% compared to last year. Now, the people in West Baltimore, where a lot of this is occurring, are concerned that the police officers have abandoned them. Just in not too recent past, the same police were accused of harassing these residents, and now it's become like the wild, wild west. Before it was over-policing, they said, and now there are no police. People feel as though they can do anything and get away with it. I see people walking with guns almost every single day because they know the police aren't pulling them up like they used to. What say you, former police officer?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. First, police work, you can train a police officer, you can hire a police officer, and a police officer has certain responsibilities. And that police officer has to fulfill those responsibilities, taking reports, responding to crimes in progress, doing what that officer can within the law. But you can't pay an officer enough to make him or her risk his or her life in an individual situation. That's something that is sort of subjective. The officer has to make a decision at the time as to what they're willing to do personally, as far as endangering themselves. And most officers are willing to do that. Most officers are like, you know what? I signed up for this job and I'm willing to die if I have to. Don't want to. But that's part of this business. But what officers will tell you that they didn't sign up for was going to prison. They didn't sign up to losing their homes and their family and their reputation when they're just doing their job. Because there's a certain amount of subjectivity that has to go into police work. It's not all black and white. An officer has to be able to use the officer's experience and sixth sense, and they have to be able to judge things within the prism of what's happening at that moment. Even though people can look later and take information that maybe the officer didn't have and throw it in there, and sometimes it looks like the officer maybe went too far or whatever. But if you put yourself in a position of that officer, you've got to give them the benefit of the doubt and let them make those decisions. But when something like what's happened in Baltimore occurs and the officers feel like, look, because I'll tell you what happened here with these officers.
You talked to any officers
Yes.
here in Lexington?
Yes, I've talked to them in Lexington, and I've talked to an officer in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And this is what I was told happened with this situation in Baltimore, this Freddie Gray dude. He is a known drug dealer. He's a peddler, as our legislature wants to call him.
Yeah.
A peddler of heroin. This is an area that they have a lot of problems. Those officers were sent into that area to make these people either leave or be arrested for peddling their drugs. And so they knew this guy. And when the officers got there, they were in what they call a proactive squad. They saw him do a hand-to-hand transaction. Now, when I say hand-to-hand transaction, through your experience, you know a drug deal when you see it from a distance. But you've got to get to the person now when you've seen this drug deal. You have this reasonable suspicion to believe based on what you've seen occur. You have to approach the person, and when a person runs, you have to make a decision: are you going to let this person run away, or are you going to pursue them and let them know, you can't run from the police? It's not as simple as just going, oh well, you got to catch me now, or I'm just going to run. And the officer said, no, we deal with you every day. When we tell you to stop, you're going to stop, or we're going to chase you down and put you in jail. Well, as they're chasing this guy, of course, what does he do? He either tosses his drugs or he swallows his drugs. He does what these peddlers do. The officers catch him and they arrest him. And that's basically what happened. So where you get into the issues, where I take issue with what the prosecutor did in this case, because I support prosecutors just like I do police. I give prosecutors the benefit of the doubt too, just like I do police officers, until I see something that makes me believe otherwise. But when I see something, then I'm fine with that, But in this particular case, what made me insecure about this prosecutor is when she came out and said one thing, that this arrest should never have occurred. Well, since when is it legal to do hand-to-hand drug transactions or to be high on the street? She doesn't know that. I knew right then that this was a political thing. Now, I don't know what happened after the arrest. None of us know for sure what happened. So we can assume. But we know for a fact that this was a known drug dealer peddling drugs, that they observed a hand-to-hand transaction, they chased him down and put him in jail. Yes, that this was a lawful arrest. And the grand jury indictment proved that because she dropped all that. But she made it political when she said that. And then went on to talk about all the other political things in the conversations. There was too much about her grandstanding that made me realize this is a political situation. If she had just charged these cops and shut up and let the justice system do its thing, I couldn't even be talking like this. Because you know what? Well, I wasn't there. But common sense and experience tells me that I smell a rat.
Well, let me tell you, the police commissioner said last week that his officers aren't holding back from policing these tough neighborhoods, but they are encountering dangerous hostility in this western district of Baltimore. Our officers tell me, said the police commissioner, that when officers pull up, they immediately have 30 to 50 people surrounding them at any time. Now, that's they almost have been given a license to do that, to threaten the police. And so that's what they're doing.
Put yourself in a position of it's destroying the morale to see that these crimes aren't being solved and citizens are suffering. But they're in a position where there's nothing they can do until they get clear rules of engagement and they know they're going to be supported. And right now, every indication is best thing you can do is just take a report and move on. Because if you get proactive, you'll get in trouble.
Here's what's happening, he says. There are a lot of levels of confusion in the police organization now. There are people who have pain, there are people who are hurt, there are people who are frustrated, there are people who are angry. There are people who have said this to me: if I get out of my car, make a stop for reasonable suspicion that leads to probable cause, but I make a mistake on it, will I be arrested? They pull up to a scene, another officer has done something they don't know, it may be illegal, will they be arrested for it? Those are the things they're asking. And as a result, they're doing what everybody does. They're cautious about doing those things. And so what's the message? And the message to the thugs and slugs and punks is they're not going to do it.
You know what? Ain't nobody got your back. So they're all over the cops. Because look, I'm 5'9", 158 pounds. I'm a big guy, okay? But
huge.
But when I'm policing, it's not just me that's standing there and standing up to these people. It's all the officers that are behind me. It is the prosecutors that are behind justice. It's the administration. And if you don't have that backing you up, you're going to get whipped every day. You're going to be put down every day. You have to have that. You can't just, that badge is made up of everyone that supports it. And right now there's not a support base for that in Baltimore. And so these officers individually are at risk. And as I said before, these officers are not chicken. They're not afraid. Every day you see officers stand up and say, you know what? I'm going to do what I need to do, even though I'm personally scared at this moment doing this building search that someone's going to be waiting for me around the corner and shoot me. I'm still going in. Okay, that's what makes you a brave person. But they didn't sign up to go to prison. They didn't sign up to go to prison for making a good faith mistake, even if I don't even know they made mistakes. I don't know. But they didn't sign up for that. They signed up to get the benefit of the doubt and be supported unless they're doing something rogue or wrong. And that's what the officers are feeling, and you can't blame them for that.
Well, here's the message. The message is, the message coming out of a lot of leadership people in various big cities is, the police are the problem. And when that happens, the police are going to react the way they are in Baltimore. They're just going to be cautious. And what happens then is the public doesn't get the protection from the thugs. It's a fine line we call civilization. And I'll tell you, the police are, to a great extent, the front lines on that line we call civilization. And if they retreat, then civilization starts to erode and go away. And we're seeing that at least in parts of Baltimore.
Well, bottom line is there are fewer police voters than there are thugs and family of thugs. And I mean, there are, what, 700,000 cops in the country. They've been deemed irrelevant politically. That's just the bottom line. It's just easy to pick on them. Because and that's the sad part of what's happening here and nationally and in some of these cities, because once again the silent majority, they don't feel this way. In our community, I know that, you know, I always tell officers that are just starting this business, I say, you know, look, here's what you have to remember. As a police officer, most people are going to be nice to you, just like you're nice to your boss, even though you really don't want a boss, because you know you're sort of that person there. But they're going to talk behind. They're going to talk behind your back like you do your boss or anybody else. That's just life. Don't let that hurt your feelings. But the bottom line is you just have to know that most of these people, when push comes to shove, do support you. You know, but you're still someone watching over them, and everybody has a little resentment for that. So just you do what's best for people, and understand that even if they don't know it, you still do what's best for them. Treat people fairly, and you'll be okay. Refuse to support the police. Refuse to even send ambassadors to police officers' funerals that are executed, when they'll send ambassadors to the funeral of the person who allegedly attempted to kill a police officer and lost the fight and got killed in the process. They'll send ambassadors to that, and they'll reach out to that person's family, but they don't do the same for police officers. You know, they're putting a plaque up. This guy that tried to kill the police officer in St. Louis, or is it? I can't remember now. Missouri, Ferguson. They're putting a plaque up in this attempted cop killer's honor now on the street. You know, I mean, what does that say? This guy tried to kill a cop, and he lost. That's what happened. I mean, but that somehow is lost in all of this. Thank goodness that officer was able to protect himself. It's sad that someone got killed, but you know the evidence has proven the officer was right. But they decided we'll just ignore that and move on. It's crazy stuff. We'll see you next week on In Touch.